Today we'll take a closer look at a figure who was at the center of the public attention for an alleged reasons. She was known for her impactful presence in politics and involvement in significant national matters. Now, she was instrumental in digitizing the conditional cash transfer program. She led efforts to phase out physical cash payments by opening 2 million bank accounts for beneficiaries through commercial banks, microfinance banks, and payment service providers. And we are together with Haj Halima Shehu in the studio. You're very much welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's start with understanding your journey so far, starting from a banker, of course, a technocrat, politician, and how it has been so far.
Okay, thank you very much. So, after my NYSC, I started working with the former Intercity Bank PLC. And up until when the banking reforms by Solido took place, I was still in Intercity Bank until we merged with other banks and it became Unity Bank. Right after the merger, I moved to Access Bank. So literally like working across 3 banks.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I have worked in all sectors of the bank, ranging from operations to marketing to internal audit and control. In fact, most of my 1 decade of banking, most of it was in internal audit and control. So I decided to leave the banking industry to join politics.
Okay.
This is because I'm a person who believes about serving humanity. In my own little ways, I do my own little contribution to serve humanity, but I felt going into politics would give me a bigger role to impact on lives. So I joined politics somewhere around 2007, 2008, and I worked directly under His Excellency, the former governor of Katsina State, Ibrahim Shehu Shima, as his SA up until when his tenure ended in 2015. Then I moved to the federal,
Okay.
where I started working with the Humanitarian ministry, and I headed a very large program that is known as the Conditional Cash Transfer Program.
Okay.
Yeah, so up until when the Buhari administration ended in 2023, I was the national program coordinator on that program. One of the major contributions I made on that program was bringing my banking expertise to play. I remember there was a time when the Buhari's administration was heavily criticized for table cash payment and disbursement to beneficiaries, which almost all Nigerians question, how can we reconcile? Are the funds actually being disbursed? So many questions around the general operational lapses on how the funds were being disbursed. And these are funds that were so huge. We're talking about $322 million from the Abacha restituted funds. And we're also talking about the World Bank assisted funds on that program, over $500 million. So we're talking about disbursement of $822 million across 2 million homes in the country. So there are a lot of questions on how the funds are being disbursed, reconciliation, does it reach the targeted audience, or is just another fraud? As at the time I was appointed as the national coordinator, I made sure that the program became fully digitized, bringing financial inclusion into play from my banking expertise, which made reconciliation, accountability, and transparency easy, opening over 1.9 to 2 million accounts for the beneficiaries, taking financial literacy to the grassroots was a huge task. So all this role that I played made the program very transparent. You could see where the funds are going, you could see the disbursement, you could see the reconciliations. And it was under my leadership that accrued interest of the Abacha restituted funds of over $11 million was traced to the CBN, and it was brought back to the office, the National Cash Transfer Office, which we onboarded many beneficiaries.
Okay.
So I'm used to working with funds. I've been a custodian of funds since I was 23 years old, up until the Buhari administration. My role in that office brought me closer to the political cycle of the APC. And when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu formed the Presidential Campaign Council team, he carved out a directorate, and he named it Social and Humanitarian Directorate. And he personally and single-handedly appointed me as the director of that directorate. It was the first of its kind in any Presidential Campaign Council of Nigeria. I played a huge role.
Okay.
That role, I'll boldly say that I don't think there's any directorate in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's campaign that played that huge task like my directorate played. Because already there's a structure from the federal to the state, to the community, to the local government, and to the wards level, which translated into about 55,000 communities across the countries. So while every other directorate was doing one state campaign, or just a fraction of it, the directorate under my leadership was going across 36 states and the FCT, taking the message to the grassroots. After the campaigns, it's automatic that if your efforts are noticed on any campaign and the party wants to be fair, you get rewarded. And that was when, again, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu single-handedly appointed me as the Chief Executive Officer, the National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program Agency on 18th October 2023.
So can you enlighten us on the mandate that the agency is all about?
Okay. So the National Social Investment Program Agency is in charge of about 5 empowerment programs. We have the conditional cash transfer,
Okay.
which is a token of 500 grant given to the poorest of the poor in the remotest of communities. We also have the JEEP, which is the Government Enterprise Empowerment Program that you hear: trader money, farmer money, market money. That is a revolving loan for traders, farmers, and marketers,
Okay.
50,000 to 300,000 respectively, for qualified beneficiaries. We have the NPower, that involves the graduate and non-graduates. It's at 30,000 for the graduates and a 10,000 grant for the non-graduates. And then we also have the grant for vulnerable groups, which is a one of 20,000 naira. Yes, given to other beneficiaries. There are a lot of other side programs like at risk children we're talking about. That's when you call them, the street children,
Okay.
or the homeless. And In all of this, the agency deals with funds from the World Bank supported $800 million to the billions of naira that is being budgeted for to impact on lives of poor and vulnerables in the country. So that's the mandate of the program, to make sure that the funds gets to the targeted beneficiaries through the right channels, the right means, which, like I earlier told you, since we had already fully digitized the programs under the past government, so all the beneficiaries now have bank accounts, and the funds are supposed to be transferred by contractors, that's commercial banks, or microfinance banks, or payment service providers, sometimes even consultants. Every program's design is different. Yes, for every program, there's a project implementation manual that is backing how the disbursement of such funds should happen.
You being in charge or making sure that all this disbursement happened and it happened really precise and transparent as the CEO, and of course given the staggering over 44 billion naira that was suspiciously transferred from the agency accounts under your watch, which has generated huge, I would say, news over the media. From your own perspective, what really happened?
So I was appointed on the 18th of October 2023, and the scandal popped up on 2nd January 2025. So we're literally talking about 10 weeks of being in office. And for the 10 weeks I was in that office, a lot of a series of transactions took place, which I noticed, given my auditing background and given my humanitarian experience, because it's not enough for anybody to be appointed and then just in 2 months, you're noticing that some transactions are not going the right way, that there are misappropriations. Any other person would be trying to learn on the job. But okay, because I have both experiences and I had worked in the ministry, I know exactly how much funds were left behind by the previous government in each of the program's accounts. So when I came on board, the first thing I started to check was the leftover of the funds from the previous government, because I have been taxed with the disbursement of the funds. And so if you're disbursing funds, you have to make sure you can reconcile. I'll tell you, in 2 months, I noticed that 14.8 billion had left the agency's account without due recourse to me as the CEO, without my consent, approval, or knowledge. Then I began to do my own audit, even before inviting other auditors to join of what is happening. When I observed that the misappropriations actually took place, funds left the NSIPA's account without due recourse to me, yet I'm the chief accounting officer. I've been mandated to make sure I know where every naira and every kobo goes to.
But I thought you were supposed to be part of the signatories.
Well, there was a total bypass in the structure, in the financial structure of the agency. Ever since I was appointed, and I was not aware. Transactions don't come to me, they come from my boss to my subordinates.
And who is your boss?
Well, my boss is Better Edu.
Okay.
Yes.
Former Minister of Humanitarian.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So she was only working with my subordinates, whom she had appointed by herself. There were like 10 vacant political positions in the NSIPA's organogram structure, and she appointed all of them. So I'll wake up, come to office, I'll be looking for my directors. I'll be looking for those people she even appointed to work with me. They will be nowhere to be found. They were actually directly reporting to her. So every financial transaction, in every financial transaction that happened in 2 months, I was boycotted. I cannot account for what happened between that time. So like I told you, I was busy trying to strengthen the general operational lapses of the social investment program, which in the previous government has been criticized. If you look at most of my videos that I address the media, in 2 months, I wasn't working out there. I wasn't disbursing the funds. I was working internally to make sure I strengthen all of these lapses. And on that fateful day of 2nd January 2024, I was supposed to be at Karu with about 1,000 beneficiaries to flag off about 3 programs of that agency. The media were there, the payment service providers were there, the banks were ready, the beneficiaries were also on ground, just trying to get set to leave my house. I started getting phone calls. You've been suspended, you've been suspended. Over what? Alleged transfers to personal accounts. When the news broke out, you could see a personal vendetta in it because there is no government that breaks news like that. The SA media of the president was never there to say Halima has been suspended over alleged whatever news was out there. You know, I was shocked because if you look at the legal framework, the mandate of NSIPA, like I rightly told you, after digitization, you contract the commercial banks or payment service providers or microfinance banks or consultants to carry out disbursements to the last mile. Another news says, she transferred such 44 billion without
consulting the proper channels.
Yeah, without, I'm trying to get the right word, without approval. You have a boss who doesn't carry you along, yet you are the chief accounting officer. And in that ministry, when I came back, what would shock you was, when the programs started, it started from the former president's office during Buhari's administration, before they were transferred to the ministry. So the programs were not designed by Halima, neither were we asked to redesign it when I came on board. And when I came on board as the CEO, I did not meet any letter from this present administration to say we have redesigned and changed the way that the funds should be disbursed. And what will even shock you is, from the previous government, of all the people that politically worked in the program from Buhari's administration, I'll tell you I was the only one that came back. So going to a ministry where you have a boss that was not willing to learn what had happened in 8 years, and that has brought in entirely a new set who had not been trained to carry out the transactions properly. The permanent secretary that the previous government left there was transferred, I think, almost 2 weeks after the ministers were appointed. So when I got to that ministry, I will always sit on a round table as the chief executive with a whole team that was appointed by my boss, and I was the only one that knew the right thing to do. You can imagine how draining that was. And since I said I was going to flag off the programs in 3 weeks, what was the right thing to do? The right thing to do was to call on the payment service providers who had existing contracts from the previous administration, who had the leftover of funds in their accounts.
So the 44 billion.
There was no 44 billion. The figures are not even correct. Yes, funds were transferred to commercial banks and to payment service providers. The question Nigerians should be asking, the transfer of the funds that happened under Halima Shehu's supervision, is that the right thing to do? Because when you're working with funds and you're supposed to deliver to beneficiaries after digitization, how are you expected to get the funds to the beneficiaries? Am I going to sit in the comfort zone of my house and start to call beneficiaries, come and collect?
Okay, so now, since you said there is no 44 billion, what
There's no
was the
44
amount?
billion. The amount was, there was a 32.7.
Was that the amount that EFCC said they recovered?
There's nothing like recovery. If you're recovering funds that the public were misled to saying they went to personal accounts.
Yes.
No.
4 different personal
No.
accounts.
The banks there were contracted to do the job.
Okay.
And funds were transferred to them to disburse to beneficiaries. Targeted beneficiaries were going to get, some were going to get 20,000 naira, some were going to get 50,000 naira. My threshold as a CEO is bigger than that. When you're transferring these funds, you're not expected to see 50,000 naira times 144,000 beneficiaries. Do you understand? You're not supposed to see a transaction of 50,000 naira to one bank. Usually the funds are transferred in bulk, depending on how approval comes from the CBN. Since already the minister had her approval to my subordinate, was I going to continue to sit and watch them carry out transaction between the minister bypassing me as the CEO? I had to take charge. And since I knew the right thing to do, and with the banks that had existing contracts, I did the right thing. The right thing was to call on them, transfer the funds back to where they came from, because when she came on board, she reported that there was, she had recovered funds from the payment service providers and from the banks. You understand? You know, as when you come on board as a minister, and you don't even learn on the job, and you keep giving the public out there, misleading the entire public about recovery. I'm not trying to protect anybody, but all the funds she previously said she recovered from payment service providers to commercial banks, those banks were contracted to do the job.
By who?
From the previous government.
Okay.
And the funds were transferred to them. And these are the leftover of funds in question right now.
Okay. Now, looking at your relationship with former Minister Betaidu, of course, reports indicate that there's been tension between you two for a sizable amount of time, and which has to do with the agency funds. Is there any perspective that the public are not aware of that has to do with that relationship?
Well, I was being bullied by my boss, Betaidu. I respected her. I respected her office. But even before I was appointed into that office, remember, she appointed someone to head the agency.
The agency that you're heading?
Yes. She appointed someone. And the president removed that person and appointed me.
Oh.
So that was where her grievances started. Even before I reported to the ministry or to the agency, we've had a whole political leadership. And you can name whoever you think is big within the country. They sat us down. Even before my appointment was announced, I was called in for a meeting with her. We sat in for about 7 hours with the political leadership of this country. Some were actually begging her to agree and work with Halima.
They were trying to reconcile you guys.
What reconciliation? I had no clue that I was going to engage in a fight. Okay. So I didn't understand what the reconciliation was for. You appointed someone, the president removed the person and appointed another person. You understand what I mean? So who are you to say you're not going to work, you're not going to have a cordial relationship working with that person? So there was that tension even before I reported to office. I'm not the right person she really wanted to work with, for reasons best known to her. And like I rightly told you, ever since I got appointed into that office, for the 10 weeks that I was there, she never minuted anything to me. And every time I wrote an official letter and sent to her, she never responded. She asked her subordinates that she appointed in my office that are supposed to be my supporting staff, that are supposed to be reporting to me. She does not allow them to report to me.
There was a news report that I saw that it's like you went to her office and you guys had a meeting, or was that just media?
Yeah, that was a courtesy call visit to douse the tension and officially, you know, since the agency is under her purview and she's a minister. So when I resumed, I went for an official engagement. So that tension was there. And so you can imagine you seated as the CEO and you're being bypassed. And then your boss is playing her role. She's also playing the CEO of NSIPA's role. And I didn't understand what my appointment was for if I was not in charge of anything.
Why do you think she doesn't want you there?
Well, reasons best known to her. Because there was a time I went to, we didn't have an office. And the very first meeting I wanted to hold with my staff, I used the ministry's conference room. It was such a huge fight to the extent that, you know, it was locked. I was told that I should never go there and use the conference room. So if I had to have a meeting, I had to hire a space to have meetings with my staff. And
as the CEO? As
the CEO. And that was how we moved on for 10 weeks. There was never any cordial relationship between me and her. There was never anything that she officially ever wrote to me. Anything she needed to be done, she will minute it to my subordinate, and they carry out the transaction for her.
Have you ever tried or decided to put that out to, let's say, the superiors, your superiors that are above you and above her?
Well, both commissions, the ICPC and the EFCC, at a point I engaged them.
Okay.
Yes, when the bypass and financial structure was getting out of hand, and I feared that with or without her alleging there was a transfer of such amount, because I knew she didn't need me there, she didn't want to work with me. I knew somewhere, somehow we were going to end up in EFCC. Because there will be a day that I will go for budget defense and I will be asked to account for all the funds there. Was I going to, at that time, say I didn't know when all these transactions were happening? So I called for advice, I called the attention of these commissions. And it was more of, this is what is happening. Please advise me. And at a point, one of the commissions, I wrote I wrote an official letter to the president detailing everything, all the financial structures that were being bypassed, how much monies have been going out without my knowledge, consent, or approval, and how additional role players, signatories, were even added to the agency's account without my consent. And in that one night, we also how over 585 million left the agency's account, you know, without my consent, knowledge, or approval. There were other
Is that the one that was put out regarding her?
Well, yes, we also it out there, and there were